you notice something different outside? Hey you, I'm Anissa. Welcome to Create to Liberate. Today's video is about reclaiming the exiled parts of ourselves. Sometimes we feel this old patterning arising in us. We don't want to react in a particular way, and yet we find ourselves moving towards emotional states, behaviors that don't feel in alignment with our higher self or the self that we know ourselves to be today. And it's because sometimes we're playing out past wounds, unhealed parts of from childhood, just things that need to be resolved. And these experiences of disconnection from how we want to be operating remind us that there's more work to do, more shadow work to do, and acknowledge and reconciling with that part of ourselves that we might have pushed aside, that doesn't want to be suppressed but wants to come to light and wants to be held. So we'll get into how to do this. As always, I share wisdom from my own lived experience, as I believe we're all each other's mirrors. We provide a mirror to each other to be able to see ourselves more clearly and hopefully empower each other. If you enjoy this video, hit the like button, subscribe to this channel if you're listening on audio. Just leave a quick review. It takes nothing and it makes a huge difference. So if you've ever gone through the experience of having behaviors, emotions arise at times you really felt you were in control and checked yourself, and it just feels like a reoccurring pattern. Well, if you've listened to past episodes, I was sharing on this ongoing experience of feeling irritable after attending events that were super uplifting and positive and spiritually woo-woo. I came home and was angry or left and felt like the devil reincarnated. I just felt this level of frustration and I couldn't really identify or place why it was. Well, if you can relate to this experience or have ever been confronted with a trigger that kind of sets you back, it's worth doing some deeper examination on what part of us needs to be given more space in that moment. I really benefit from getting explicit guidance, from pulling from oracle decks, from channeling, from doing more intuitive work. And you might have another means that helps show you that you need additional guidance. Maybe you're speaking to a therapist who's licensed and you keep telling a little bit of the same story and they're able to mirror back to you. This is a repetition of an old pattern. What is the underlying history that's making this reoccur? What's behind that trigger? Why is this part, an aspect of yourself, so hard to sit with, so hard to be with? That angry version of you or this emotionally disconnected version of you. What is there? What is in there? And when's the last time you felt that? Are there any things that you can notice? Can you be the detective in your life? Common exiled parts of self include this: the procrastinator, the people pleaser, the codependent, the chronic self-doubter, the angry, outburst, irritable, aggressive version of us. All these shadowy type of behaviors that we don't love, that we don't uphold in society, they all exist within us. And if you haven't healed those sides of self, when they appear, it's worth tuning into. One of the unconscious reasons we crave romantic partners is because they force us into a level of triggering that often helps us examine childhood wounds and parental relationship. I've personally experienced desiring certain careers so that I could experience a level of wounding around areas that needed to be healed within me. You can do this for places, people, communities, joining things that are just disharmonious with our true selves. And we're wondering why we're triggered. Well, we needed to re-experience some things at times. And I don't mean putting yourself in a position of experiencing trauma. I would never encourage somebody to reintroduce themselves to abuse, etc., but in the context of semi-healthy, unhealthy dynamics. In these experiences, if you can identify what made you specifically feel hurt, feel irritable, feel angry, feel the desire to abandon self, what was the root cause? And if you can't identify that, I totally empathize. I was struggling, and I'll get into how this was relevant to me. I was struggling for the last few weeks, almost a month, of feeling this level of extreme irritability and anger, which contrasts the spaces and people, environments that I was in proximity to. I'd go to like the sweetest singing sound bath experience here in LA, and I, by the end of it, was just like brooding and so deeply frustrated and harboring anger. And on my way home, I'd be driving, I'd be like, ugh. Anyways, we don't need to get into that. That's Scorpio moon in Isa. But this level of intensity and ferocity was starting to kind of come up in me. And as I was pulling oracle cards in the morning, I kept getting, there's a part of you that needs to be seen, loved, and let go of so that you can move forward. And that's what our shadow is. That's ideally what we allow when we go through healing, is not being surprised if old versions of ourselves start surfacing, and then we have to love them, and then they kind of submit, and then old versions of ourselves arise again, and then we love them a little harder, and then they submit. And we're kind of always peeling back layers behind the who we are. So this irritation that I felt, I couldn't put my finger on it. I thought it was maybe that these spaces were a little too positive, a little too spiritually bypassing the harshness of reality at this time. I was like, there's not enough Palestinian attention. There's not, it's... Anyways, I could logically get into so many reasons why, and that's the place that we often want to go to, is rational reasons, but it was actually an emotional thing. So what I did, and what I highly recommend when I get into some of the steps that you can do to reconcile the exiled parts of yourself, was I did a specific guided meditation. I'll link it in here. That's a little more alike to astral projection ultimately, but so that you can be outside of this, you that you are here, and just allow any messages to come through. On the other side of it, I was able to receive the words as I woke up: gymnastics. I was like, gymnastics. Gymnastics. I used to do gymnastics when I was a kid. And when I did gymnastics, like when I did many sports, I was super competitive. This version of me came out that was a ruthless competitor, an amazing athlete. I could have been the Olympian, but I hated this version of myself. Internally, I beat myself up. I was very hard on myself. I was very disciplined, but more as a dictator. And that level of competitive energy within me reinforced a feeling of not enoughness. It was really tumultuous internally for me, even as a little kid. To have that level of strength and ferocity and determination, but to channel it all to beat yourself down so that you could do things. Because at that age, I didn't really have the skill set to speak compassionately, kindly to myself. I didn't have that balance of healed masculine energy and healed feminine energy. If you haven't seen my videos on these topics, then definitely check the link above. But it takes a level of healed masculine energy to be disciplined, but not be a tyrant, to be a go-getter, but not push yourself beyond the brink. And I didn't have that skill set when I was a kid, and I had so much of that masculine energy that was unhealed. And I remember this as I am now doing non-competitive type things. I retired from acting, which was that same beating myself down to get better, to compete with others, to stand out. Now I'm in this non-competitive area doing these things that are just like la-di-da, go to this event, happy, no competition. And this side of self that's arising is that ferocity that wants to be channeled into the world, that wants to have some kind of outlet. And she's arising at the end of all of these events. That's who's coming up, this little kid who had to quit gymnastics because she was too hard on herself. And so what I had to do at this end of meditation with this little girl arising in me was to take her and hold her and say, I love you so much. I love your ferocity. I love how much of a go-getter you are. I love your intensity. And you can do this with yourself, to hold the hand of your inner child that's arising in these triggers and these moments of hardship, and just be with them and tell them what you wish that they could absorb. Now you can parent them with a hand out and extend it and say, I love you so much. I love this part of you. I decided that I want that part of you to be expressed in healthier ways, in a way that will support not only yourself and your well-being, but other people. I want you to channel that side of self and be your most expanded, express version of self, but not in a container that just sinks you down into a heavier, denser, hurt self, but actually opens you up. Because what my child self got to experience when I quit gymnastics was moving towards dance, having all of these friendships, having all of this community, having creative expression, being very non-competitive and dancing with these other dancers and not caring really about progressing, just dancing for the love of it. And that also continued to be a theme that I tuned into in life. So for me, going back to this example, I don't know what the next thing is as far as expansion. I don't know what my version of ending gymnastics / ending acting births into. But I know that it's probably going to be much healthier. I know that it'll support more people beyond just myself. And just really reminding that inner child that they're welcome to be here, that we love all of the parts of ourselves that we used to be, and we want to bring them to the table. But we want that table to be sturdy, to be steady, We want to move from a place of love, compassion, and just really allowing that part of self to be seen in me in this practice, allowed that part to really come to peace within my body. And it was a very dramatic shift, and I feel things on a more dramatic level these days, but it was a level of peacefulness just by being acknowledged. And then I decided some actions against that. For instance, I'm going to play tennis more because I do need a competitive outlet. That is still play. I'm definitely not competing to be a top tennis tier or something. But I need creative outlets. I need athletic outlets. I need to run more, do more cardio. I need to be more engaged with my physical body is a big thing, because that's some of the masculine energy need to be doing, to be exercising, and to be in a discipline with that. There's also a lot of spiritual deepening that I won't share details on, but that is a great place to channel our ferocity, intensity, especially Scorpio energies. If you have any Scorpio in your natal astrological chart, then this is for you. If you have a trigger, you're kind of set back into the mode of being this other version of you. And in that moment, how can you be compassionate to yourself? Instead of judging this part of self, how can you be more curious? What is this part of you trying to tell you? I've had other moments in dating hugely being triggered, and all those moments that are hysteric are historic. And they were able to be identified in those moments. And how can you send more love to that part of self in that moment? Or sooner than later? How can you not leave these parts of yourself unexamined? What part of you needs to feel safe and feel seen? Because that part of yourself, if they do not feel safe and seen in this moment, they'll make a revisitation at a time that's inconvenient. Believe me. So here's some practical steps to reconcile that exiled part of self. Guided meditations. Unsurprisingly, I will always mention focusing on guided meditations, though, that are a little bit more oriented towards healing the inner child. Guided meditations that allow you to feel in a safe container to move out of your body and into the past and just see what arises. Maybe a guided meditation that allows you to connect with any ascended masters you feel comfortable with, angels, spirit guides, your highest self, and receive any information, anything that might support you in getting more clarity on your soul's needs. You can even do a metta meditation, which is a loving kindness meditation to send more love to yourself, and see if in sending that love to yourself and sending that love to the world, if anything arises. Another thing is writing. Do some journaling, do some reflecting, writing down this one random word pops out to me, or this one thing is stuck in my mind. You just need one little inkling to be able to start doing some detective work and exploration. What does this remind me of? Anything connected from past journaling? Hopefully you have a little database and you can start to do some examination on that moment. Was it the circumstance? Was it the context? Was it this person? Is that person mirroring anything that's within me? And it's so fun to just allow yourself a few pages of conversation with yourself. If you have identified what those historic things are that are arising, that exiled part of self, more explicitly, then you can understand what your needs are. And even writing those out explicitly and making a commitment to yourself on what's going to change and going forward, I find to be powerful. To really reparent means I'm going to show up for you. And it's going to look like this because I care about you. And you can speak to you in that way. Reclaim your love for yourself by saying, I love you. By explicitly saying, my love isn't just words, it's actions. This is what things are going to look like going forward because I care about you. And then sometimes when we're super triggered or wildness arises within us, emotions that we're not as comfortable sitting with, sometimes it takes us also getting back into our bodies and just focusing on movement for that time being. Sometimes it doesn't support us to be cerebral continually. I have to remind myself of this personally as an Aquarius, that the work that we need to do will come through us and we don't have to think it out. So as far as a practical step, that might mean doing yoga, it might mean taking a walk, it might mean taking a run, it might mean swimming, it might mean tuning into a level of exercise, dance that you love. What personally makes you feel a level of freeness, openness, that just allows you to have whatever needs to come to you to come, and allows you to let go of whatever need to be let go of to go. So the purpose of doing this work is to be more in our state of wholeness. There is no part of you that ever needed to be exiled. There is no part of you that needed to be abandoned, but there's parts of us that we have a harder time dealing with, especially as children. We don't have the skill set, the emotional intelligence to really be able to cope with those sides of self. And that's the lesson, is not to ever exile parts of ourselves, but get to the place at which we can really accept those parts of self back into our being. And maybe they don't play a major role in the way that we express anymore, but just by accepting them back into our being, we create more peace within ourselves. I mentioned doing more tennis and doing these different things to welcome back my inner child, the ferocious one. But also, it also gave me clarity that, girl, you don't need to just be at the most positive woo-woo spaces all the time. We are welcoming back in more darkness, more shadow. I brought my friend to a death cafe in the neighborhood and she loved it. And I love that space, and I love having spaces at which I can talk about mortality and death and dying and the afterlife and these other contemplative, philosophical things that I love. Some would see as dark, but I see as a reason to continue to live purposefully. What you will feel in welcoming back this whole version of yourself is more authenticity, more connection, deeper relationships with others, because it's a deeper relationship with yourself. When it comes to healing, wellness, wholeness journeys, self-love journeys, there is no complete forward momentum. It's always an unpacking with compassion. No rushing in the process will get you any further ahead, because life is ultimately the teacher. You living, you continuing to move through the world and gain lessons, and being self-reflective of what those lessons might be is the greatest way to move through the world. The goal is not to be a fixed, healed person. The goal is to be able to manage all of life's challenges with a greater level of compassion and love and inner peace within us, to deal with all of the challenges at life that we will choose, also challenges that we might actually sign up for, but to be able to navigate them and be able to choose them from a place of belief that we can navigate them without making ourselves small in the process, from entering a more expanded version of self. I believe that there's no part of you that is evil. There's no part of you that needs to be exiled. There are only parts of you that have experienced a lot of wounding, that are probably not as societally acceptable, and those parts of you deserve love too. They definitely deserve healthy outlets or healthy acknowledgement in this lifetime, and I'm sending you so much love and unpacking and examining what those exiled parts of self are and integrating them back into your present day being in healthier, more whole, mature ways. If you're watching, hit the like button, subscribe to this channel for ongoing content. If you're listening on audio, just leave a quick comment. It takes very little and it's so appreciated. Appreciate you being here.